Us live, former Chicago radio host, and that's where you grew up. You know, it's funny. We go back to the Bears. There's so many issues. I said I was rooting. Usually, a Hail Mary, I feel bad for the losing team. I'm like, oh, they outplayed them. I was rooting for the Hail Mary to work. I was so disgusted by some of the Chicago stuff. You've got friends in Chicago, still spend some time there. I'm surprised Eberflus has sort of escaped this criticism. Does he deserve more after that loss?
Oh, I don't think he's escaped this criticism in Chicago. Certainly not from my friends or the media, but also, Colin, his players. It's a very empowered roster that he has. DJ Moore went on the score the next morning and said, I didn't like the play call of giving the ball to the backup center on the goal line. Kevin Byard, the safety, said, we should have played more up on the play before the Hail Mary that gave the Commanders an extra 13 yards. Jalen Johnson went on the score and said, we should have called a timeout before the Hail Mary. Cole Kmet, in his press conference with the media, said, we got to respect practice more and have more accountability during the week. So all of these things you can reasonably conclude as an indictment of its coach, and I certainly would on a few of them. But I talked to a player on the Bears last night who said they like that their coaching staff empowers their leadership council and takes feedback. So I don't think that they're going to break over this. I don't think that there's going to be a mutiny over this. But the thing with Matt Eberflus that drives me insane is don't you know what on my shoes and tell me it's raining.
Right.
Like he was like, I don't think we needed a timeout before the Hail Mary because everyone was in position. Tyreek Stevenson's back was to the ball. Like everyone wasn't in position. Like Dan Quinn said the key to the Hail Mary was the play before the Hail Mary, because Jaden Daniels would not have been able to get it to the 3 or 4 yard line for the tip if not for those yards. Matt Eberflus said, oh, the play before didn't matter. It was all going to come down to the last play of the game anyway. So Matt Eberflus kind of chose the route of denial instead of accountability. And that's the thing, honestly, more than the failed execution that bothered me most.
Yeah, I want to talk about the Mike Tomlin situation.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the Chicago Bears and the Eberflus situation, not the Mike Tomlin situation. Before I start, I really want to ask Chicago Bears fans how they feel about Eberflus. Because in the beginning of the season, I, voiced my concerns with Eberflus, and so has Colin and other people as well. And the one thing that stood out to me was the Chicago Bears fans really intensely defending Eberflus. Big time. And to me, it feels like, based on, the well over 100 videos that I've made now, the Chicago Bears fans, that they seem to be divided. Some really believe in Eberflus and believe in that defense and what they've been able to accomplish and how they've been able to win, even with, say, Justin Fields. And some are very much like, no, get him out. Because I remember doing a clip where I was like, oh, Eberflus is going to be on the hot seat this season, right? They're either going to look good and win or else they're going to move on. And people were like freaking out about that. And so I'm curious right now how you all feel about that, right? That is my honest, genuine, direct question to Chicago Bears fans. You're watching all this unfold. You're watching this season unfold as a whole. And I'm curious, where do you stand from there? Having your players come out and like call out coaching and plays and preparation and stuff is definitely a weird look for sure, and a bad look. I understand they're empowered to kind of maybe voice this type of stuff, but it's certainly not good and not what you want. I mean, if they're having these conversations within the locker room, I guess I could understand to a degree, but it's still a very weird place to have your team question your coaching staff. It is very difficult to run a cohesive team, a cohesive culture when that unfolds, quite frankly. It's a little, can get a little weird. Maybe a captain or two, or someone who you really have a tremendous amount of trust in and have that more two-way relationship with, like you would see with, say, like your quarterback and your head coach or your coordinator or whatnot. I can see that, but still not have that conversation publicly. It would be more like in meetings and stuff and post game behind the scenes. So that already is kind of like I don't love that. I'll be really, really honest with you. And yeah, the whole idea of taking accountability, I kind of go back and forth holding some of these coaches' feet to the fire with what they say in front of the microphone, because that's not where everyone's skill set is. I can talk forever. I can go on. I am obviously not the Chicago Bears head coach right now, but I am confident. I could go jump in front of the press conference, and I could just, if there was a way for me to just magically look like Eberflus and I could step up and they could ask me questions, I am confident that I could completely just make up my way through that press conference. Like, oh, it was a tough game. Caleb did this and that, right? And I could just completely make it up, act like I've been there, like that I am the coach. Me and Caleb had a really long conversation about it, and we're gonna unpack some of these things, and like I could just completely make stuff up, and I could just talk and be skillful, crack jokes, and all of that. Not everyone has that ability, and I'm not like trying to be all cocky about it, but I'm trying to highlight that not everyone has that skill set. So this idea of like he didn't take accountability or this or that, sometimes it's just people who don't know how to talk, or they do feel backed in the corner, and it's just different, right? Like, and unless we know behind the scenes that he's not taking any accountability, then that's a problem, right? Then that is a problem. But just in terms of publicly and what you're saying to the press, I know it's good when a coach can do that. If a coach can say, I made a mistake, I needed to do better, I should have done this, I should have done that, I respect that a lot. But the more I watch other coaches, the more I watch other people talk publicly in general, whether it's players, coaches, media members, whatever, I just recognize that everyone has a different skill set, right? Everyone has a different ability to speak what they're feeling and have the confidence to do so. So that's why, because the reason why I'm harping on this is because Danny Parkins was just like, that's the biggest. He goes, that is something that I just cannot accept. And it's like, not everyone has a long media career. So if he heard that people behind the scenes that he was not taking any responsibility, then yes, that would be fundamentally an issue. But in terms of how you're talking publicly, I mean, think about it like this. Let's look at just Bill Belichick right now. Look at how he talks in front of the media now, right? He's on Peyton Manning, the Manning cast or whatever, and he's doing Pat McAfee and all these shows. And he's like cracking jokes and has charisma, the big quotes of that charisma, but he has more personality. There's that when the whole time with the Patriots he goes, just grumpy, bitter, right? Not saying anything. It was obviously his plan to do all that, but still obnoxious from my viewpoint, nonetheless. And so there's just different levels of mastering how to speak to the media that I've just come to realize that not everybody has. So I'm just not going to hold their feet to the fire too much unless the game really matters. Really, then to me it becomes a little bit less excusable when it's like a game to get into the playoffs that you lost or something, or you lose a playoff game, right? Like then it's like, I don't care how good you are with the media, you got to answer these questions, and you better answer them truthfully. Like, that is the job, right? That is the job. You better be good at it. And I think this should be part of the job as well. I'm just a little bit more lenient on it. That's just my point. Maybe that my view. Maybe that will change as time goes on. But, yeah, I mean, the real direct question that he kind of failed to answer was, are the Bears doing enough to support Caleb? And the answer is, both yes and no in a lot of ways, right? They have some really nice pieces, but they obviously also have some deficits. But the reality is like, how perfect can you expect a situation to be, especially this early on in someone's career? And so I think there's been a ton to praise Caleb for, but also some bad right now, right? I mean, right now, the way how Caleb's season has unfolded is he's been good with some really great moments and some really bad moments. And so those have just evened out right now, right? It's very much like a Dak Prescott type thing. And I am not saying Caleb will be Dak Prescott or that's his seating. I'm not saying that at all, but it's just reminiscent of how Caleb is playing right now, where it does some really beautiful, awesome, spectacular stuff, and then also some just really bad stuff, which is to be expected as a rookie. To me, this is what part of the problem is with such high expectations. The Chicago Bears fans especially were confident that they were just going to rip off these next 3 games and then they're going to beat the Lions, they're going to beat the Vikings, they're going to beat the Packers, right? Like, they're so confident in that and not understanding that this is just not going to be as easy as they want it to be. And yeah, they had this game. They could have won this game, but you could put it on the flip side and say that the Commanders easily could have scored another 2 touchdowns if they just executed ever so slightly better. So if we're going to play if the Bears just executed ever so slightly better, they win that game. And we could say the same exact thing about the Commanders, where if they executed ever so slightly better, didn't have a penalty at a bad moment, they're up by more than a touchdown, right? They're up 2 scores. And now it's the Bears that are struggling to try to come back and win this game. So, we got to be fair to that, quite frankly. Both of these teams were not flawless in their execution, and the lack of flawless execution was not necessarily imposed by the other team. So again, you could take credit for it. If you could say, well, hey, the Commanders weren't flawlessly executing because of the Bears' offense or defense or whatever it may be. That's not the story for either team, quite frankly. For either team, this was far from a perfect game for both teams. And I would say their lack of execution was pretty equal from that viewpoint. And so then the rest comes to the players, to the mistakes, to the quality of play. And that is kind of where Caleb honestly ended up being the difference maker, right? It just was. There was many moments when he had a guy, and I talked about this before. Shane Waldron, I do not think they did a good enough job, and I'll talk about this in a future video with Mark Sanchez, I believe, that they did not do a good enough job of helping support Caleb Williams. I don't think that can be denied. They did not get him easy layups, easy completions to kind of get this momentum going, to kind of get the chains moving. They did not do that enough. But with that said, in the moments that Shane Waldron did do that, and the guys were there, and there could have been a big play that completely changes this game, Caleb simply missed. And Romo pointed it out multiple times. I think it was like 3 or 4 just complete missed opportunities on Caleb that Romo was like, I think Caleb would really love to have those throws back. That just completely changed the game. It completely changes everything. So that's why both things can be true. And I'll emphasize that again with the Mark Sanchez and Colin Cowherd video. So that's why there's responsibility and blame going around for everyone. Now, you give the benefit of the doubt to Caleb because he's a rookie, right? I'm not like, oh my God, Caleb, how do you miss that throw? This is ridiculous. You're supposed to be the number 1 overall draft pick. You're supposed to be a superstar. Yeah, you're a bust. I'm not saying that either. Like, I still have full belief in Caleb Williams. And I do think Caleb Williams will be a legitimate star in the NFL. And so I've always preached, give these quarterbacks grace. But we do have to be honest about this whole responsibility pie of this loss. It was part bad luck, part bad execution, part bad coaching, bad game planning, bad quarterback play. There's plenty of blame to go around. That to me is reality. It's not this one thing. It's not, oh my God, Shane Waldron was the reason why they lost. Eberflus is the reason why they lost. Caleb is the reason why they lost. No, it was like 10 to 15% here, 10 to 15% here, 25% there, 5% there. There's enough blame to go around, right? So I think that the Chicago Bears have to reconcile with that and accept that as the truth of how this game unfolded. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Chicago Bears? Do you think they're doing enough to support Caleb? How do you feel about Eberflus, Caleb, anyone else? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.